Hey, Steady Steve, please like and subscribe. Please click on the Deck Heroes icon. Click on subscribe. It's 100% free. Blood in, blood out. And don't forget to click on the notifications just so you don't miss any amazing content. Okay, so this video is by Benny Ari. You look in the top left-hand corner, basically just reading it. You must be a bad man for a great relationship. Actually, as I heard this about 2/3 of the way through. He speaks a lot of gold. I'm not going to waste 1 minute of your time. Let's go.
Good day, gentlemen. I've been with my girl for almost 6 years and we've built a fantastic relationship. But the harsh reality is, I had to become a bad person to actually build that relationship. You're a good person, I know that, and I'm the same way. But you've likely realized that being good doesn't actually get you what you want in life, in sex, and in relationships. And you also don't want to be a jerk because that's just not aligned with your values. I was the exact same way a couple of years ago, and I want to share 4 of the most important lessons that I've learned, no bullshit lessons, that actually got me to where I wanted to go. Now, lesson number 1 is you are not living with integrity in your relationship, and I can prove it. Because are you actually saying what you want to say? And are you actually doing what you want to do? Or are you being polite and being nice out of fear that she might not approve of your words or your behaviors? Now, the reason I'm asking you this is because it turns out the feminine side of most women, that radiant, loving, attractive side most men think so highly of, quite frankly, and love so much, that side of her just wants to relax in your presence. She doesn't really want to make the decision where to go for dinner. She doesn't really care where you go for holiday. Of course, she doesn't want a tyrant who rules all over her. But at the end of the day, she wants someone with direction, someone who says and does what he wants to say and do, who's not maybe always polite, yes, who's nice and loving in that sense, right? But not nice in the sense of he bends his own will and his own reality and his own actions to fit into the framework or to fit into what he thinks other people want him to do. She wants someone who says what he means and means what he says, because that makes him trustworthy. I want to tell you a story to really drive this point home for you. Back in school, this was like maybe 12 or 13 years old for me. We had one friend in our friend group who was always ambiguous, always just going with whatever everyone else said, always agreeing with everyone. And one day, this is just was what we did as kids, right? This is not nice, but it's what we did as kids. One of my friends says to me, bro, I'm going to go up to him now and tell him, hey, dude, this song that just came out, I love it. And then an hour later, you're going to go up to him and say you hate the song. And so we did that, and he agreed with both of us. One time he agreed, this song is great. And then the next time he said, nah, dude, I fucking hate that song. Even as a man, can you trust that person? Can you trust someone who isn't living with integrity? No, you can't. And her feminine side can trust that person even less. Make sure that person isn't you, because you think you're being nice and you're being polite, but what you're actually doing is you are literally destroying her primal trust in you. Now, lesson number 2 ties into this, but it goes...
Very interesting, very interesting. I've actually literally just done a video and I kind of said something very similar. It's about a young man trying to fit into other kind of social spaces. And my viewpoint was I was always the alpha. I'm going to be honest with you. And my viewpoint was you don't need to go in toxic circles, you know what I mean? So maybe you need to withdraw and kind of align yourself with other groups who kind of are going in the same direction at the same speed. You know what I mean? More so than trying to compromise for acceptance. And I say I've always been very secure in myself, and year on year as a young person to as you get older, especially as you accumulate accomplishments along the way, very, very kind of secure and sure in yourself and your perspective. That's the future. But obviously, if you don't push yourself and everybody else is getting ahead of you and you're at the bottom, then you may end up being a little bit more insecure. But anyway, going back to this in terms of relationships, I think definitely. He talked about integrity, but I think it's really talking about a consistency. You know what I mean? That she can rely on what you're saying. You're not a bullshitter at the end of the day. And I say you mean what you say, and you say what you mean. Is basically what he says. You're not kind of flappable. For want of a better word, and and I think there's some kind of manliness in taking taking direction. That doesn't mean that you're an idiot, some kind of alpha brute or anything like that. But as I say, just about having a surety about yourself, and as I say, if you're with somebody who happens to be quite indecisive, then you know what I mean, just kind of having a plan and going forwards and moving that forwards with some kind of certainty and some kind of a surety. And of course, again, we're not forcing anybody to do anything, but it's just about approach and tone. Almost like what I just said, basically. You know what I mean? Like, what do you like to do? Should we do this? Okay, let's do that then. Okay, you know what I mean? 3 steps. If you want to kind of respect everybody's opinion. And okay, obviously it's situation dependent. There's a million different ways to go about it. Let's go forward.
way deeper. Lesson number 2 is If you don't say no when you want to say no, then she will lose trust in your yes. Here's the thing, man. If you don't respect yourself enough to say no, then she can't respect you. A lot of the clients that I work with, a lot of the men that I work with, right, what happens for them is they essentially ask me, hey, why doesn't she trust my decisions? Why doesn't she trust me when I say yes? Why is she so just, nasty and complaining and uninterested in sex sometimes? Then I say, well, do you ever say no when she asks you to do something and you don't want to do it? I'm like, no, I don't really do that because, I want to be there for her and everything, right? Like, there's your point. Because here's the thing. What we're talking about here is feminine intuition. She knows exactly who you are. She can read you like a book. Most women have this very empathetic ability that most men don't have, where she can read you like a book. She knows exactly who you want to be and how you want to act and what you want to say. But when who she knows you are, is out of alignment with who you're acting as right now, then she will lose trust and respect for you. And for me in the past, I've always been someone who worked a lot, right? But then when she wanted to spend time with me, what happened? I was like, yeah, sure, I'll spend time with you, even though I wanted to work. But I wanted to look virtuous, and I wanted to avoid conflict. But then I was wondering, well, why is she so nagging? Why is she so uninterested in sex? There's your reason right there. Brother, just accept that she knows exactly who you are. Because even if this was not true, which it is, but even if it wasn't true, it would still hold you accountable to acting authentic and acting as who you truly want to act as, who you want to be. And here's the thing, man. Recently, I spent an afternoon with my girl. And after a while, I realized, fuck, I can't really be present with her right now. This is not helping her and this is not helping me because I haven't gotten my work done for the day. And so I told her, hey, I can't be present with you right now. This is not helping me. This is not helping you. I want to do some work for an hour. Get some shit done. And then I'll be with you again. And at first, she complained and she was like, we had such a good time right now and this and that. And I stayed on it. Like, I didn't react to her response. I just stayed calm and was like, I understand, but I'm going to work now for an hour. And then later I came back. She was so sweet and so loving, and she asked me how my work was, and this and that, and we had a very loving and very connected and very sexy evening afterwards. Now, lesson number 3, we're gonna go...
Okay, yeah, before we go into lesson number 3, I think what he means was, he said say no when you mean to say no, and something about feminine intuition, where the kind of person that you're presenting is out of alignment with the person that she kind of thinks that you are, or reads into who you are, the more that she gets to know you. The way that I interpret that is, I think there's a lot of pressures for men not to be men and to fit into some other space. You know what I mean? And we almost got to apologise for being a man. And there's more men that are raised in single parent households, which doesn't tend to include a man or marginalises a man. And I think that can be quite confusing. And I think it's especially confusing because at the end of the day, over the entirety of human existence, male roles in most civilizations, in most cultures, very similar. I think maybe the only there's probably there's one female tribe, I think, where they go out and hunt. You know what I mean? There's one that comes to mind in the whole of our time on this earth. Okay, so I think there's that, but I think also it's almost a kind of a bizarre situation where I think men fit into certain boxes, but ultimately those are boxes which don't lead to the outcomes that you might expect. You know what I mean? Where you kind of seem pressurized into being a particular type of person, and that goes back to kind of the difference between who you are and how you're acting. But ultimately that person who you're portraying yourself to be isn't what they want either. You know what I mean? So there's that kind of paradox. And just to finish that off, I think the reason why it doesn't generally work is because women like men. Women like men to be men at the end of the day, and this kind of in-between thing which we're kind of pressured to be, is just not attractive because that's not the way that we're built. You know, it's not the way that men are built to be, and it's not the way that women are built to be attracted to men of that type. You know what I mean? And again, I'm not talking about the alpha fool. I'm just talking about people who know how to lead. You know what I mean? Have that kind of bit of a surety about self. You know what I mean? And provide some direction to self. And none of that sounds bad, right? But I say, once you make it all mushy and in the middle, and it's almost kind of like an off version of femininity, and you're a man, you know what I mean? Too much of anything is too much. Say too much masculinity, and definitely masculinity going over towards femininity too much. Anyway, let's go.
Even deeper into this, and this applies to every relationship, by the way, but especially to romantic relationships. You must live your truth, but some people will not like it. And that's okay. Because if people in my life don't want me to say what I want to say, or don't want me to do what I want to do, then I don't want them in my life. I'm not saying that you should get rid of everyone who's like calling you out on your bullshit. Those people are very important. But if someone is always negative about what you're doing, that doesn't work. I've had friends in the past who told me, bro, like business, I don't really know entrepreneurship. It's very sketchy and like very tricky and difficult. Just go to university. Just like me. I was like, no, I don't want to go to university. I want to build businesses. Simple as that. I don't want to go down this traditional path, and that's just me. I'm not saying that's a bad path in general. That's just me. I didn't want that because, to be honest with you, I knew that I would be able to do it. It wasn't a challenge. I knew, okay, I can just go to university, study for 4 years, get a good job. I know I can do it. But building a business, that's difficult. That's a challenge. That makes me grow. That's why I did it. Now, here's the thing. Once you actually live your truth, some people will not like it, and maybe that includes your partner. Most likely it won't, because they can already see who you truly are, and they want you to be that person, most likely. But people who you want in your life, including your partner, are those people who call you out on your bullshit, but also those people who support you in a very positive way on the path that you want to choose. I'm a very warm and very loving person, but I'm also a person who will tell you straight up if you're fucking up, and some people can't handle that. And that's okay. Then those people just at this current moment don't fit into my life. Now I want to tell you a quick 30-second story to really drive this point home for you. I recently spent a day with a bunch of men, some of them I've never met, all entrepreneurs or athletes, all hardworking guys, aligned with my values, right? And at one point, the topic of diet came up, and we talked about diet for a while. Now, thing is this, I have been on a vegan diet for the last 4.5 years because it just works fantastic for me. I don't say that everyone has to do this. I'm not giving you diet advice. I'm just saying this works for me, right? And some people, especially one guy in this group, is on a full carnivore diet right now. And here's the thing. We had a fucking great conversation about it, and both of us took points away from this. Nobody got defensive. We just had a great conversation about it. Because both of us could see that the other person actually made their own decision. They didn't make this decision out of politeness to someone else or out of obligation to someone else. Because think of a person who would have gone with a carnivore or vegan or any other diet because he thinks he had to, out of obligation or politeness to other people. That person, in that conversation, in that discussion, he would have become defensive. He would have acted like a missionary, telling everyone else, you need to do a vegan diet, you need to do this, you need to do that, blah, blah, blah. But we didn't do that. We just stayed calm and had a great conversation because we could both see, hey, this is what the other person actually consciously chose. This is their own choice. That person who would have gotten defensive and would have acted like a missionary would have done that because they deep down know that their decision to go with this diet isn't actually their own decision. Let that sink in for a moment. How often in your life, in your relationship, do you make decisions that in reality aren't your own decisions? That's why you get defensive sometimes. That's why you sometimes act in ways where afterwards you're like, why the fuck did I act like this? I don't want to be that person. Because you haven't actually made your own decision. You just went with someone else's decision out of politeness or out of a feeling of obligation or to avoid conflict. Let that sink in for a moment. Now, lesson number 4. This is the most...
Very interesting. He's talking about defensiveness. I think he's talking about unacceptable levels of compromise in a relationship. I'm not 100% sure of the example that's in his mind. But yes, if there's an unacceptable level of compromise or you're crossing some kind of red line, you know, in order to maintain a relationship, whether that's with friends or if that's in an actual kind of, you know, partner relationship, you know what I mean? Then yeah, that's definitely something to think about. Before that, he started talking about kind of having a conversation with somebody about anything. This is what I call the beer test, where you can respectfully disagree with somebody and just be open and honest with somebody. You don't have to agree. You can still have a beer. You can still have a beer and a laugh. You know what I mean? Have the beer test. You know, trademark. He also talked about people might not like your current direction of travel in terms of your life or your opinions, and that's completely okay, and that may end up being your partner as well. That's okay, but you still got to follow the path of your own truth. You know what I mean? You might not be aligned with absolutely everybody. I think there's some space in there for some kind of self-reflection about whether, you know, I actually value this person. They're actually sensible people, so you know maybe there's something to what they're saying. You know what I mean? Not think that we are somehow right in every single scenario, but ultimately, all things considered, if you're on a path, you'll probably have a future with the people who are going to agree with you, basically. And he gave the example, you know, that university wasn't for him as an example, and he wanted to challenge himself in another way and starting his own business, which is awesome. I've done both, basically, and I learned a lot from both, so I definitely know what he's talking about. And of course, if the business thing didn't work out, then at least he's tried. And also, he can always go to uni at any time in his life, so not really a problem, sort of. Yeah, something about you mentioned something about truthfulness. Um, yeah, and sometimes you need to, whatever, however harsh the truth is, just be true to what you know is right, basically, and just kind of stick to those kind of guns. Situation dependent. All is good anyway. Let's go.
Important lesson in this whole video, because I always keep the most important lessons to the end of these videos, so only guys like you who are actually serious about transforming the relationship, only guys like you get these lessons. So here we go. I recently brought on a guest speaker for my clients, and he made one point very, very clear. And he essentially said, if you're trying to give your woman a massage to try and get more sex, you're literally acting like an afraid little boy, not like a man. Because at the end of the day, what happens when you give her a massage, right? You ask, like, imagine this, right? And I know that everyone's done this. I've done this. So everyone has done this, right? Everyone knows this move. You ask her, do you want a massage? She's like, yeah, sure. And then maybe you ask her to take her clothes off because then it's easier to give her a massage. Maybe bring out some oil, whatever, right? At the end of the day, more and more sexual stuff starts happening. But she didn't sign up for that. That's not what she agreed to. She agreed to a massage. And she is not playing your sneaky games that you're just playing because you're too afraid to just make an actual move or just say, hey, I want to have sex right now. What do you think? And sometimes when you do that, when you live your truth, right, this is kind of part of the bigger picture that we painted here, living your truth and saying what you want to say. But at the end of the day, it's a very applicable day-to-day thing. Here's the thing, man. If you just act truthfully and you just say, hey, I want to have sex, or you make the right move, right, without hiding your intentions, without hiding your desire for her, first of all, what does a woman really want, or most women really want during sex? They want to feel desired. You don't make her feel desired by giving her a massage. You make her feel desired by showing your desire for her. And by the way, if she says no, she's just saying no to sex, not to you. She's not rejecting you personally. Keep that in mind. And not just that, but in the vast majority of relationships, she will actually want sex more after getting used to seeing you live your truth. She will see that now your thoughts, your words, and if appropriate, your actions align. So man, do and say what you want to do and say, if appropriate, of course. Brother, live your truth, because firstly, you will feel way more aligned and way more at peace with yourself. Secondly, if you show and you express your desire without fear, without insecurity, openly to her, that is one of the sexiest things you can do for a woman. And thirdly, you will really build massive trust with her, that primal trust. And that's what she wants when she wants to have sex with someone. She wants to know that she can fully trust that person, fully let herself go. She doesn't have to think about anything. She just lets herself go. Think about that. That's what living your truth does for you in your relationship.
Yeah, very interesting, very interesting. My interpretation of what he was saying is just act like a man. Just be a man, be yourself. You don't need to beat around the bush, let me give you a massage when really you want is, get down and dirty. But listen, what I don't want to do as a man in his 40s who's obviously lived, a varied and active life is we can't be too male brain about it though. You know what I mean? We do want to have a little bit of smoothness about it. It's not like you, me, bed. You, me, bed. That's not going to work, Maybe some of the time, just for lols, just for giggles. But you know what I mean? You need to have a bit of smoothness about you. So yeah, maybe. And what's wrong with a massage? Poor example, my friend. Poor example, but point taken. What I was going to say. Yeah, I think in general what he was trying to say was there's no harm in actually being manly. Being manly is actually quite attractive to a lady, strangely enough. It's the way that our brains are built. You know what I mean? Not toxic masculinity, but listen, just being yourself, basically. I'm sorry to use that term anyway, because I think that's a catch-all for a lot of kind of red herring things right now, which is kind of boxing men into not being themselves and being on the wrong side of that masculine feminine spectrum. The men are on the male side of the spectrum, newsflash, and that was what should be natural and more common, of course. Yeah, and women are more likely to find true men more sexy, that's I think there's definitely a lot of truth in that. I think what he was trying to say was just be open about who you are in your true nature. You know what I mean? And that's not like saying that everybody should take you warts and all. That's not what I'm saying at all. But yeah, it's no. If you're into women, you don't have to apologise. You don't have to pretend that you just want to be friendly with somebody that you're attracted to. And for every single man, we're sexually attracted at the beginning. That's it. That's it. Just a quick story, just a quick aside. I was out not too long ago, actually. So I'm not even looking anymore. I'm not in the dating market. But I was out in a hotel, and there was a bar in that hotel. two women and a man come out, and I don't know, just something about my face where people just talk to me. So we're just having a chat. I'm open anyway, you know what I mean? And it turns out that the guy had gone on a date with one of the girls, and she was upfront in saying there's just basically nothing sexual there. And I looked at him. What I wanted to say was, brother, how did you get to this point where she was actually initially interested in you, and now she's coming out blatantly shaming you to your face? And I think at that stage, and this might be a clue, he was walking them to the London Tube, to the London train service. Now, there's nothing wrong with that per se, but who would take that on? It's going to be a friend, isn't it? And I just thought that is a clue about this man not being manly, and she identified that he's not of sexual interest, you know what I mean, at all. And I'm not saying it makes you of sexual interest just to not walk somebody to the bus station or to the tube, whatever. But you just got to be sure. Listen, we're not playing hide and seek with who we are as men, basically. He's interested in her because he's got a sexual interest and he's got a potential long-term interest in them. But we're not looking to apologise for just being ourselves, basically. So don't put yourself in the damn friend zone, I think is what I'm trying to say. And if I had been more time with him, I would have said it. But as I said, I'm going to try and call him back to have a quick conversation between the two of us. But I only just met them, you know what I mean? And who am I to tell him what to do? And hopefully he watches one of these videos. Anyway, that's that. Don't apologise for being a man. Then he went on to, if there's a difference between your persona that you're putting forwards in order to be this kind of the person that you think that she expects you to be, and who you truly are, she's going to see through it. And I think he talked about female intuition. And if she thinks that you're a big bullshitter, you're not upfront, or there's just some kind of inconsistency between that, do you really mean that? She ain't going to trust you. And if in her core you're not the person that you're portraying yourself to be, then she's not going to be as open to you, including sexually. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, women need that. You know, talk about being a provider and all that, and they talk about that long-term perspective at the back of women's brains. Well, if they can't trust you, listen, you are closed off at step one, or at least you should be, or at least you should expect to be. You know what I mean? So just have some logical consistency. Don't be afraid to be yourself, basically. And again, that doesn't mean you don't kind of reflect on yourself and how you approach things. You know what I mean? And listen to the feedback. All of that. All good. Anyway, please like, subscribe. Then Steve, and I am out.